After my first year back at college at the University of South Dakota at Springfield, I started really getting into it, and I had determined that I was going to be successful no matter what, and that I was going to work at it. And the things that I had learned while I was not in school, that I couldn't be as good as the next person. I had to be better, much better, noticeably better. And I really was determined. I went to class every time, every day. That was probably the biggest secret to college success is go to class. Everything else will come into place if you go to class. And I did. I did not miss classes, even in times when the teacher said nothing, is going to happen next class period. If you don't want to come, I won't take roll or anything. I would still go anyway. And very often there were classes where those would be times that I made some extra points with the teacher or something. But I was very determined. And at the same time, I kept working at the radio station. And also, and I was driving every day rather than living in the dorms or anything like that. And Scotland is only about 30 miles from Springfield, so it wasn't too bad. And I would still go back, and I worked at my mom's cleaners as a clerk in the afternoons or whenever I could. And also, along in there, someone else that had come back to Scotland, Greg Zweifel, had been in the military and out doing things, and we ended up driving together, which actually worked out very well for both of us. We would push each other some, and in certain things, he went into electronics, although he was a couple years behind me by that point, which worked out good for him because we could go over things and stuff like that. But my math was really weak, and that was one of the reasons that I had only gotten a 75 on that FCC exam, was because I couldn't manipulate the formulas very well. And so I tried to memorize them in all their different configurations, and it was frankly impossible. So we started taking math together, and then what we did was during the summer, we took a couple of math courses that they had that were self-paced courses. And then you would go down there every so often and take a test. And that's what we did. So, and to do that, I, went through the lessons multiple times, made sure that I had it down pat, and then went down and took the tests. And we would take a number of tests at the same time when we went down there. And that worked out quite well. Ended up getting A's in both those classes. And then going forward, I took my first computer programming class, and I really found that it was something that I had kind of a flair for. It was interesting because a lot of the things that had made me good at coping with being handicapped were also the exact skills needed to be good at computers. The attention to detail, the fact that you always had to be looking for ways around things, but at the same time thinking about the big picture. How is this all going to come together? And that patience and persistence that I had developed really made a difference. And so I really found I had a flair for programming. First programming class went pretty well. And after that, I started, and this was on a mainframe, but I did some things like I wrote some programs for the radio station that would have a list of records and print out a list of how they should be played from a certain number of records. Like we would have like 100 records in a certain segment, and we had these different segments during the day. We had oldies time and country time and top 40 and stuff like that. And this would print out a seemingly random list for each day of the week, rather than just let the DJs play whatever they wanted, because when we did that, they kind of played whatever they wanted in it, and it really wasn't, was more just their own sitting there playing records thing. And so it worked out quite well, and the program was, it took me a while to really get it to work decently. I never did get it to the point where anybody could use it but me, which was ended up that I had to do a fair amount of work to do it, but it was something that I liked and was good at. And when the second semester of computer programming went even better, I was by far the top of the class, and I realized something. One of the things with mainframe terminals, like at Springfield, was that the mainframe would tend to go down somewhat regularly, at least a couple times a day. And if you were a student, if you stayed at that terminal until it came back up, you could generally retrieve whatever you were working on. But if you went to a different terminal or if somebody else logged in before you did, everything would be lost. And so that, along with the fact that moving from one place to another isn't the easiest thing in the world when you're disabled. And so and there were only 7 terminals available to students on campus. So there were at least 2 computer courses going at the same time with a total of, maybe 100 students, all trying to get to those 7 terminals. And so I would sometimes sit on a terminal just waiting so I could get my work done. And I enjoyed it so much that whenever they would hand out the programs, I would go and start working on the program immediately. In fact, as I would be writing it as the teacher was handing out the assignment. One of the things that happened, a couple things that happened because of sitting at the terminal. One, the manuals for the mainframe were sitting there, and there was something called JCL, Job Control Language, which allowed you to get the computer to do things that maybe you weren't even supposed to get it to do, basically anything. And I learned a lot from that. I won't say that I used it or didn't use it, but there were some hacking skills developed along the way at that time, which turned out to serve me very well later. The other thing was that there was often 2 terminals together, and it turned out that a lot of times other students would come in and stuff, and I learned a lot by helping them. In fact, I will say that I learned more about computers and programming by helping other people fix their programs than I did by writing my own programs. And along the way, actually, Greg was the one who said to me, "Have you ever thought about being a teacher? Because you're really good at explaining this and helping people," because I had helped him with a couple programs, and he had been waiting while I was, because we were getting ready to go or something, and while I helped someone else a couple times, and it led to me doing a dual major at Springfield, both my electronics engineering technology and VTTE, vocational technical teacher education. And so I was taking both of those at the same time, and I determined that if I worked it out right, I could end up with my degree. And what I really wanted to do was to teach electronics, possibly in a vo-tech school or possibly maybe at some place like Springfield, although they had all the teacher positions were pretty much locked in, and my odds weren't all that great of teaching there. But one of the things that really strikes out about that whole time and period was I determined that I was going to succeed, and failure was no longer an option.